Hey guys, tonight I'm going to start working on something I've been meaning to get to for a while and I just haven't done anything with. This is the water cooler assembly for the water-cooled TIG torch that I got when I bought my big airco welder. For those of you who haven't seen my big airco welder, that monstrosity right there is my airco Heliarc AC/DC welder. I believe it's been so long since I really looked at it, I don't even remember what it is amperage wise. It's like 250 or 300 amp. I don't push it anywhere near that high because A, I don't have the proper supply hooked up to it to supply it with the proper input amps for that kind of thing to happen. It needs like a 100 amp breaker, I think, for that to happen. B, the only thing I've done with this thing since I've had it is some stick welding, and not a lot of it at that. So but what I want to do is I want to do something I've never done before. I want to try TIG welding. This unit has high frequency start, so it should be something that I could learn. I like to think. Maybe with the high frequency it's going to be a little bit easier than learning, say, like scratch start TIG welding. And yeah, it's old. It's a monster. I don't know if you guys can appreciate the scale, so I'm over 6 feet tall, so this is, but still you can get an idea. This thing is a mammoth monster. And yeah, I mean, a lot of welders, a lot of guys just think that's a prehistoric piece of junk and that it belongs in the scrapyard. But I tell you what, A-Bomb's got one. So, I mean, I think enough said right there, right? This water cooler is exactly the way I found it when I went and bought that welder. It wasn't, it was all hooked up actually at the time, but it wasn't under power. So I've never actually seen this water cooler even work. It's actually still got a little bit of some sort of fluid in it. I'm actually a little perplexed. This thing was standing up like this when I saw it, and it's got a cooling grid on the top here. Okay, right there. But I noticed that it's got these feet. Well, one's missing, but it's got, yeah, there's a foot missing here. It's got these feet on the bottom here, which makes me think this thing's supposed to actually sit like this under normal operation, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think, like, if you see like a Miller Coolmate, I believe is the name of the old Miller units, I think they all work that way too. And I don't recall whether or not I even found any information online about this thing. It's a Dynaflux Incorporated, but I could see a label down inside here, and there actually is a model number in there, and I never noticed that before. So maybe I can search that model number and get some more information. There are a couple of check boxes that are available, and the 115 volt, which I kind of knew that because it has a regular plug on it. But apparently this was also, you could also order this in 208 volt, 230 volt, 460 volt, 50 hertz, or 60 hertz. So European, I guess. This is a model number VH1000G, as in golf. So that's Victor Hotel dash 1000, G as in golf. There's a serial number, not that it's going to mean much to anybody, 6VHG2062. So, not that anybody's going to know, but odds are nobody's going to make any heads or tails out of that, but just for the heck of it, I mention it. So, what I see in this thing is a good sized honking electric motor right midship here. And there's a fan on top. It's a double-ended shaft motor, clearly. There's a fan on top that blows air through this radiator on the top over here. And then there's a shaft that comes out of the bottom and goes to a pump right here. So you can just see through the opening here. This is a pump. And the motor is coupled right here. And you can just kind of see it. See if I can get the camera down inside this thing. There we go. You can see the fan blade up there. It's a pretty good sized motor. All right, so the only opening on this lower reservoir that I see is there's a fitting here, and then there's a, well, of course, this fitting goes to the pump. It's marked output, that makes sense. The pump goes through the top of the, and down into the reservoir. It's probably got a pickup tube down inside there. And I guess when I open this up and look inside here, that'll tell me how this should be oriented, probably depending on how the pickup tube is. If the pickup tube curves and goes down here, then I would say, yeah, definitely it's supposed to sit like this. If the pickup tube goes straight down towards the bottom, towards the side here, then I would say, well, I want to stand it up. So the only other way to get into this thing, apparently, is there's this black plug right here. It doesn't appear to screw on. So I'm going to have to take a guess that it's a plug that's supposed to be pried out. Use this carefully. This plastic might be old. Well, it's kind of a rubbery plastic or rubberized plug. Yeah, all right, there's a dip tube on a line that goes in over here. And that line, I can't tell what that is. That might be a return line. So I was wrong. The bottom of this pump is actually just sitting. It doesn't even make a penetration through the top of this thing. It's just sitting there. So it's so close to the top that I just thought that maybe there was something coming out of the bottom of this pump going in there. There's not. So that eliminates that. So we've got really only 3 connections, and we got a port on the back here. I think that's a port. I don't know what that is. That might be some sort of a check valve or something. But anyways, we've only got 3 connections on this thing. So we got this line here that goes up to that radiator up at the top. We got this line right here. Okay, right here. This line goes down to this fitting on the tank, which from the inside of the tank I can see just shoots directly into that tank. It does not have a dip tube or anything. Okay, which is interesting to me. The other line back here, which you can just see right here, this goes into a penetration through the tank, but it goes into a long tube that's straight in, goes into about here. So if this is supposed to be vertical, I would say that's a pickup tube. But if it's supposed to be horizontal, I would say maybe this is the pickup on the back side over here, and that this just has a long tube on it to ensure that water that's returning to the reservoir gets stirred into the bottom of it maybe. Well, I think probably the easiest thing for me to do would be to just hook this thing up and power it up and see which way it tends to want to pump water. I can clearly see this is marked return and this is marked water out. I can hook these lines up. What I'm hoping these other lines, and maybe even this assembly on the back of the pump right here, I'm hoping what that all is I'm hoping that's some sort of like a bypass valve. Because from what I understand about reading up on these briefly is that it's important that there's some sort of a bypass system built into the cooler if your welding system doesn't have some kind of a provision for bypass. The problem is that if we take this output and we send it directly to the water solenoid on the welder, and it has no place else to go, well, when the solenoid is closed, in other words, when you're not welding and the solenoid's not energized, basically you're deadheading this pump, which would be bad news for the pump and can damage the pump. But many of these coolers, from what I understand, have a built-in provision that when you deadhead this output, a spring-loaded valve, which is what I believe this unit on the bottom here is, will be forced open and allow that pump output to immediately recirculate back into the tank. And that's what I'm thinking is going on here, but I'm no expert by far. All right, so I just filled this up. Boy, that got heavy quick. People have to forget how heavy water is. Yeah, I just filled this with just tap water for now. I don't intend to run this with just strictly tap water in it. There's special fluid that goes in these units, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now I just want to see what's going to happen. So this is one of the hoses. There were several hoses that came with the welder, because I took it all apart, and I don't remember what hoses went where exactly, but basically there's two. This is actually oxygen hose, but I know for a fact that they weren't using it for that they were using it for two hoses are red and green, like oxygen and acetylene, but they were using them for argon, the shielding gas, and for the water. I intuitively think that they would have used the green for the water, so I'm thinking that maybe this is, oh yeah, reverse threaded. That's a dead giveaway right there. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm hooking the output to the input. So basically this is just, if this works, it's just gonna run in a loop, because if I turn this on right now with this off, water's gonna come shooting out of here, and just in case there's a lot of cavitation and rocking and rolling, I'm gonna put this cap on, at least maybe not all the way, leave it up a little bit just so it's easier to see, to get off next time. Let's see. All right, I'm in camera. Let's fire this up and see what happens. Oh, that sounds horrible. What I think happened before I even got a chance to shut the switch off is I think the thermal cutout on the motor just popped. There's probably I'm hoping there's an internal overload on the motor. Unfortunately, there is something sick about this puppy. Now, it's quite possible that this thing was actually running when I bought it, and it's just been sitting here so long. This thing had been not used for quite a while, and it was in an unheated garage area too, which probably didn't help things. I actually was quite pleased to find that this plastic reservoir wasn't cracked, quite frankly, because temperatures in that garage definitely got down below freezing, and there only appeared to be water inside this thing, which, if that was just plain water, could be part of the problem. All right, it's been sitting for a couple of minutes. Let's see if it reset. Yeah, it's trying to start and then immediately stopping. So I think there's some sort of a high current device or temperature actuated device on the motor that's basically saying, hey, this thing's locked up, doesn't want to move, don't force it. If I take this top cover, well, I really can't take this top cover off. This is plastic molded. Looks like if I take these screws out, water will leak all over. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to turn this up vertical. Keep this side tilted up a little bit. Keep the water from coming out of there. There's 4 screws in the back here too that I missed, and I'm pretty sure these 6 on the top. Looks like when I take this off, it doesn't, kind of leaves this whole top assembly without any support. The hoses are just flexible, so it shouldn't be an issue. Very delicate aluminum fins on this thing. There we go. Well, one bit of good news right off the bat. That's an A.O. Smith motor. The reason why I say that's good news is because A.O. Smith, I believe, is a good brand of motor, and it shouldn't be some kind of a weird motor that if I had to replace it was almost impossible to find. I see actually on the fan blade right here, there's a arrow showing the direction of rotation. Hey, that sticker says made in the USA. I wonder if is the fan made in the USA, or are they just referring to the whole unit? Metal fan. Okay. If I were to fire it up right now, I could see if it started running, the fan blades would carve a nice hole in the radiator there and ruin it on me. So we're not going to do that. But I tell you what, this just moves. Oh, there we go. Kinking the lines a little bit, but so now I can do what I wanted to do. which is manually try and rotate this and see if it's stuck. Oh. It's interesting. The motor shaft moves back and forth a little bit each way and then it stops dead, which makes me think it's not the motor that's stuck, that it's the pump itself. In other words, I think there might be something wrong down in here. I don't know how I feel about that revelation. Quite frankly, I was actually really hoping it was just the bearings on the motor was stuck from sitting so long, and that maybe I could, even just give it a little bit of a push and it would start. I mean, that might still be the case even with the pump here. I don't even know what kind of pump that is. I don't know if that's a vane displacement type of pump, or, I mean, I doubt that would be a gear pump. Let's see. See if I give this a little bit more love. A little bit more firmness. Oh, that's quite a bit of firmness now, guys. And oh, something moved. Hey, it's moving. Oh yeah, there we go. That's loosening right up. Wish I had a wider shot when I did that, huh? Oh well. Hey, I was here for both of us. All right, so now that I have this moving fairly freely, make sure that cord's not going to hit, and I'm just going to leave that hanging like that for the moment, and let's fire this up. Imagine if one of those blades came off right now and it went right through my jugular. Man, that would be an awesome YouTube video. I don't know if you can see it, but you can just see the water line rocking and rolling inside there. And we got a little bit of a drip here, which I'm not surprised because I just hand tighten these fittings. So what I'm wondering now is, if I kink this hose, whether or not that'll cause this, what I think is a bypass circuit, to work. So the question is it actually going into bypass when I'm doing this, or is it deadheading? I think if I take some more water out of the tank so that there's less water in the tank, I'll be able to see more. Well guys, it's actually the next day, and last night when I went upstairs, I took this model number, this VH1000G, and Googled it and found out that this is actually one heck of an expensive cooler. I think it's good for like use on up to 500 amp welders or something crazy like that. The G on the end denotes that this particular model is a gear pump. So this is a gear pump in here. The other good news that I found when I was looking up the specs is that this has built-in bypass, as I suspected. So we're good to go. I don't need to really play around with testing it anymore to see how well the bypass, to see if it has bypass. I know that it has bypass. Also in the specs, I read that it can be operated in either the vertical or horizontal position, depending on what your space requirements are. So turns out I don't have to solve that mystery. I can put it any way I want. And with my welder being so tall, I'm probably going to run it in the horizontal aspect. So I think what I'm going to do next is just put this thing back together. But just to give you an idea, the cheapest price I found currently online for this particular cooler, this exact model, was $750. And then everything else after that was then I found another one for like $790 some odd dollars. And then I even found one site, same exact cooler, saying that they were selling it at a discounted off list price of $1,600 for this thing. because they claim that there's a $2,600 list price on this. I got to tell you, this might be a very well-made cooler. I don't know, but I just think that's absolutely that's obscene to ask that kind of money for this thing. This thing consists of a 2-gallon polypropylene tank, a small brass gear pump, a small A.O. Smith electric motor, an aluminum fan, some hoses, a few brass fittings, and an aluminum radiator. And just, I mean, where do they see, even if the list price is pie in the sky, where do they even see $1,600 in this thing? You know? I mean, I understand comparable coolers are, like from Miller, are expensive also, but this just seems beyond the pale. Oh, before I put this back together, I am going to do one more thing, which is I'm going to very carefully vacuum the fins on this thing. And on second thought, I decided to just disconnect it since it's just a couple of hose clamps. Oops. And blow it out with some gentle, not very harsh, compressed air. Make sure all the dust is out of those fins. There's quite a few fins that are damaged here and flattened. And it's funny because that's actually on the side that faces the fan. So I'm not sure how the heck that would have happened. I don't know if debris or something had gotten in there over the years, like on occasion, or what. I do see some corrosion. I think what looks like maybe corrosion on the inside of these copper tubes. It's got that classic bluish green color. I did find this radiator assembly for sale online as a replacement part. I think the one I saw was like about $130 just for this unit.